Early morning, December 7, 1941. The sky above Hawaii was clear, calm, and beautiful, just like any other day. The waters of Pearl Harbor were still reflecting the gentle sunlight of the Pacific. Aboard the massive battleships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, sailors were having breakfast, writing letters, laughing with one another. No one knew that in just a few minutes their world and the world itself would never be the same again. Far to the north, more than 3,000 meters above the sea, Japanese aircraft were quietly approaching. Hundreds of engines hummed in unison. No radio chatter, no signals. Their orders were absolute. Speak no word. Show no hesitation. Do not turn back. A simple, cold command. Awaken the giant. Hours earlier in Tokyo, Japanese diplomats were still pretending to negotiate peace with the United States. Meanwhile, at Pearl Harbor, American officers believed Japan would never dare to attack, certainly not on U.S. soil. A deceptive peace hung over everything. No one noticed that during the night, a Japanese strike fleet, 6 aircraft carriers, over 400 planes, 20 escorts, and midget submarines had crept silently toward the Hawaiian Islands. Aboard the flagship Akagi, Admiral Nagumo peered through his binoculars expressionless. He knew that if this plan failed, Japan would have no future. But if it succeeded, the world order could be rewritten. The moment had come. A single coded message was transmitted: Tora, 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 the signal that the surprise attack had succeeded. 600 a.m. The northern sky above Oahu darkened with the silhouettes of incoming aircraft. On the battleship USS Arizona, the morning alarm had not yet sounded. Sailors were still yawning, chatting, scrubbing the decks. And then a deafening explosion ripped through the calm. Sirens screamed. Steel tore apart. Men shouted in terror. From the east, dozens of bombs plunged down one, striking the ammunition magazine of the Arizona. A fireball erupted, shaking the entire harbor. In seconds, 177 men were dead. The ship split in two and sank beneath the water, taking with it men who never even knew what hit them. Above, Japanese dive bombers swooped like blades into the heart of America. Another wave of bombs struck USS Oklahoma, flipping her over. USS West Virginia, California, Nevada, all were hit, burning, sinking. The harbor became an inferno. American sailors, barefoot, half-dressed, jumped from decks into the water, screaming for help, searching for friends. Blood spread across the surface. Engines roared, explosions, thundered, voices cried and pleaded. The blue sky had turned into hell. From the ground, U.S. pilots tried to take off, but it was too late. Most planes were destroyed before they ever left the runway. A handful managed to lift into the air only to be outnumbered 10-1. One young pilot, George Welch, took off anyway, knowing he might die. He shot down 3 enemy planes before being hit. He survived, but when he landed, tears streamed down his face, streaking the oil and soot. We couldn't do anything. It all happened in less than 2 hours. But in those 2 hours, the world changed forever. On the water, battleships burned and sank, columns of smoke rising hundreds of meters high. On land, hospitals overflowed the air, filled with cries of pain, and desperate names called into the chaos. Some sailors still alive but trapped below deck tapped on the steel walls for days until the tapping stopped. On the Arizona, the fire burned for 3 straight days, unending. Across America, silence fell. The news spread over the radio from coast to coast. Families sat frozen as the words came through: Pearl Harbor has been attacked. Thousands are dead. Within hours, the nation was gripped by shock, grief, and rage. But beneath that grief, something else began to rise, awakening. The next morning, President Franklin D. Roosevelt entered Congress. His voice was hoarse, but each word struck like thunder. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. He declared, "We will fight. We will never forget." Within 24 hours, the United States declared war on the Empire of Japan. 3 days later, Germany and Italy declared war on America. And so World War II became truly global. But in Japan, no one realized that their perfect strike was in truth a fatal mistake. They had crippled the Pacific Fleet, yes, but they missed 2 crucial things: the U.S. aircraft carriers. Enterprise Lexington and Saratoga were not in port that morning, and they had awakened an enemy they could never hope to contain. Before December 7th, America was divided. Half the nation wanted to stay out of the war. After December 7th, America stood united. One will, one purpose, one flame. Men lined up to enlist. Factories reopened through the night, producing ships, planes, and weapons. Students left schools. Wives kissed husbands goodbye at train stations. A nation had awakened. The sleeping giant was alive. In Japan, celebrations erupted. But in a quiet office in Tokyo, Admiral Yamamoto, the man who had planned the attack, sat in silence, staring at his desk. He did not smile. He understood better than anyone what was coming. And softly, he spoke the words history would never forget. I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. 2 weeks later, American troop ships began to leave harbor. Flags rippled in the wind. The men carried not just rifles but grief and a vow to return the pain tenfold. From that day forward, the fires of war spread across the Pacific from Midway to Guadalcanal, from Tarawa to Iwo Jima. Every battle that followed was an echo of that fateful morning at Pearl Harbor. The world had changed because of one morning, one sunrise, one siren, one instant. But from those ashes rose a new power armed with industry technology and an unbreakable will. The war was no longer Europe's, it was humanity's. New ships slid down the docks. New planes soared into the sky. New soldiers marched carrying the memory of Pearl Harbor on their backs. Each time they fought, they remembered that red glow over blue water where they had lost friends, brothers, families. Months later, when the U.S. struck back at Midway, a pilot aboard the carrier Enterprise wrote in his journal, "We fly today for those who died at Pearl Harbor." And as they took off, the sky roared once more this time with the engines of the awakened giant. Pearl Harbor, a morning of sorrow, a strategic mistake, a turning point in history. No one, not in Tokyo, not in London, not in Berlin, could return to the world before that day. From then on, all were swept into an unstoppable tide. The Second World War entered its next chapter. A chapter written in blood, in fire, and in the rise of a new empire, the United States of America. Today, if you stand on the shores of Pearl Harbor and look into the clear water below, you can still see the remains of the USS Arizona resting silently on the seabed. Oil still seeps from her hull, drop by drop, like tears from the past. Above the waves, the flag of the United States flutters gently in the wind, not as a symbol of victory, but of awakening. Because sometimes a tragedy does not destroy a nation, it awakens it.